My name is Katie. I'm 38 years old, and on May 17th, 2024, I drowned in the floodwaters that took my home. I've lived in Texas my whole life. I'm a mom to a sweet girl, Lily, who just turned 9, and I work part-time at the local library. My husband, Brandon, is a good man, a high school football coach. Our life was, normal. It was filled with Friday night games, church on Sunday, arguments over what to watch on TV, and the constant worry about the bills. We weren't rich, but we had enough. We had love. I never expected anything crazy to happen to me. I was just a mom, a wife, living a small, quiet life in a town most people have never heard of. The rain had been falling for 3 days straight. It wasn't just rain, it was a wall of water that just wouldn't stop. The news called it a once-in-a-generation flood. For us, it was the end of our world. The creek behind our neighborhood, the one Lily and I would skip stones across in the summer, had turned into a raging, angry river. That morning, the evacuation order came. We were trying to grab things, photo albums, Lily's baby blanket, the important papers. The water was already at our ankles, then our knees. It was cold and muddy, and it smelled like wet earth and fear. Brandon was trying to get the truck started, but the water was rising too fast. "Katie, we have to go now," he screamed. He had Lily in his arms. She was crying, her little face buried in his shoulder. I was grabbing our cat, Patches, trying to stuff him into a carrier, but the water surged. A wave, dark and powerful, slammed through our living room window, shattering the glass. It knocked me off my feet. I remember the shock of the cold, the force of it. It was like being hit by a car. I went under. Everything was a blur of brown water, debris, and chaos. I couldn't tell which way was up. My lungs burned. I fought. I kicked, but the current was too strong. It was like a giant, invisible hand was holding me down. All I could think about was Lily. I saw her face in my mind, her big blue eyes. God, please, just let her be okay. To save my baby, that was my last prayer. Then everything went black and then quiet. The roaring of the water was gone, the burning in my lungs gone, the panic, the fear, it all just stopped. I felt a gentle pull, like a feather being lifted by a soft breath. I opened my eyes, though I didn't know I had closed them. I wasn't in the water anymore. I was somewhere else. I was floating, weightless, above my own house. I could see it all. The roof was barely visible, surrounded by a churning, muddy sea. I saw my husband, Brandon, clinging to the top of his submerged truck, holding Lily tight. He was screaming my name. His voice was raw, filled with a pain that ripped through the silence. Lily was wailing, a sound that broke my heart into a million pieces, but I couldn't feel the heartbreak. I felt peace, a strange, deep, impossible peace. It made no sense. My family was down there suffering, and I was up, here watching, feeling nothing but a profound calm. I tried to scream back, to tell them I was okay, but I had no voice. I had no body. I was just me, pure awareness. I looked around. Everything was muted, covered in a soft gray mist. It wasn't scary. It was just still. I saw other lights, faint, shimmering forms, rising from the water all across the town. Souls. I knew it instantly. I was one of them. We were the ones who didn't make it. A thought came to me, clear. Isabel. So this is it. This is death. There was no fear in it, just a simple, quiet acceptance. Then the gray mist began to part, not like clouds, but like a curtain being pulled back. And in the distance, there was a light. It wasn't like the sun or a light bulb. It was alive. The light was made of something more than just brightness. It was made of love. I know that sounds strange, but it's the only way I can describe it. The light was pure, unconditional, overwhelming love, and it was coming for me. Or maybe I was being drawn to it. I wasn't sure. All I knew was that I wanted to be there. I wanted to be in that light more than I had ever wanted anything in my entire life. As I got closer, the light took on a shape. It was the form of a man. He was tall but not intimidating. He was wearing a simple robe, the color of cream or off-white, and it seemed to shimmer with the same light that surrounded him. His hair was dark, shoulder length, and his skin was olive, like someone who had spent their life in the sun. But his eyes, that's what I'll never forget. His eyes weren't just a color, they were everything. When he looked at me, I felt my entire life flash before me, not like a movie, but like a feeling. Every joy, every mistake, every secret shame, every quiet act of kindness. He saw it all, and he didn't judge me. There was no condemnation. There was only an understanding and a love so deep, so powerful. It felt like it was remaking me, healing every broken part of my soul. Tears filled my eyes, though I had no physical eyes to cry from. The feeling of being so completely seen and so completely loved was overwhelming. I knew who he was. I didn't have to ask. The word formed in my spirit, a whisper of pure awe. Jesus. His voice wasn't a sound that traveled through the air. It was a feeling that bloomed inside my chest, a warmth that spread through my entire being. It was kinder than any voice I had ever heard. "Katie Ann," he said, and my name in his voice sounded like a beautiful song. "Welcome. Peace be with you." I couldn't speak. I just floated there, bathed in his presence. All the worries of my life, the mortgage, the car repairs, the silly argument Brandon and I had last week, it all seemed so small, so insignificant. All that mattered was this love, this perfect, all-consuming love. He smiled, and the light around him grew even brighter. It wasn't a blinding light, it was a comforting light, a light that felt like home. I'm dead, aren't I? I finally managed to form the thought. "Your life on earth is over," he said gently, "but you are more alive now than you have ever been." He held out his hand. I didn't have a hand to take, but I reached for him with my spirit, and when I did, the gray mist around us dissolved completely. We were standing somewhere else. It wasn't heaven, not the heaven with golden streets and pearly gates you hear about. It was a place of clarity, a place where truth was as real and solid as the ground beneath my feet. "Where are we?" I asked. "A place of understanding," he answered. "I have something to show you, something you must take back." "Take back?" I was confused. "But I'm dead. I saw my family. They think I'm gone." The thought of their pain was a distant ache, muffled by the peace of his presence. "Your journey is not finished," he said, his eyes full of compassion. "But first, you must see. You must understand what is happening to the world you came from. So many of my children are lost. They are distracted. They are afraid. They have forgotten how to listen." He turned, and the space in front of us changed. It was like looking through a giant window. I saw America, not a map, but the real country, teeming with life. I saw cities, towns, farms, all buzzing with energy. But there was a darkness I had never noticed before. It wasn't a physical darkness. It was a spiritual one. It was like a thick, ugly smog clinging to people, to buildings, to the very land itself. I saw it swirling around schools, government buildings, and even some churches. "What is that?" I whispered. "It is fear," Jesus said, his voice sad. "It is division. It is pride. It is the noise of the world that drowns out my voice. The enemy has worked hard to build these walls between my children." He showed me a vision of a typical family. They were in their living room, but they weren't together. The dad was on his phone, scrolling, his face blank. The mom was watching a news channel that was shouting angry words. The teenage son was in his room, lost in a violent video game. The little girl was watching a show on a tablet that was teaching her things that went against everything, good and pure. They were all in the same house, but they were miles apart, each one locked in their own little digital cage. The dark smog was thick around them, feeding on their distraction, their anger, their isolation. They are starving for connection, Jesus said. They are starving for love, but they are feeding on poison. They argue over colors, red and blue, while their souls are turning gray. He paused and his gaze was intense. "This is why the storms are coming, Katie. Not just storms of water, but storms of fire, storms of shaking, storms of hardship. I do not send these to punish. I allow them to break the distractions. I allow the shaking so that what cannot be shaken may remain." The scene shifted. I saw a vision of a great fire. It wasn't a forest fire. It was a fire sweeping through a city, but it wasn't burning buildings. It was burning away things. I saw expensive cars melting. I saw piles of designer clothes turning to ash. I saw bank vaults with their doors wide open, the money inside turning into worthless dust. People were running not from the fire, but from the emptiness. They had lost everything they had built their lives on, and they were left with nothing. "They have built their houses on sand," Jesus said softly. "They worship idols of wealth, of fame, of power. I must allow these idols to fall so they will remember the only rock that stands forever." Then he showed me another vision. It was a city where the power went out, not just for a few hours, but for weeks. The lights were gone, the phones were dead, the internet was gone. The silence was deafening. In the first few days, there was chaos and fear. People were looting, fighting over the last scraps of food. The dark smog was thick and suffocating, but then something changed. I saw a neighbor who had never spoken to the family next door, knocking on their door with a can of beans and a flashlight. I saw a group of strangers huddled around a small fire, sharing stories, singing songs. I saw people looking up at the stars for the first time in years, their faces filled with wonder. I saw them praying, not in big, fancy churches, but in their living rooms, in the streets. Their prayers were simple, desperate, and real, and as they prayed, I saw tiny pinpricks of light begin to pierce through the dark smog. With every heartfelt prayer, the light grew stronger, pushing back the darkness. "Do you see?" Jesus asked, his voice filled with hope. "The enemy's greatest weapon is noise, distraction. He wants my children to be too busy, too entertained, too angry to hear my call. But in the coming silence, they will have no choice but to listen. In the hardship, they will have no choice but to depend on each other and on me." He looked directly into my soul. "This is what is coming to America, a great stripping away, a great humbling. For many, it will feel like the end of the world, but it is not the end. It is the beginning of a great awakening. I am not judging your nation. I am rescuing it." He showed me one last thing. It was a memory from my own life. I was a little girl, maybe 7 years old, kneeling by my bed. I was praying for my grandmother. who was sick in the hospital. My prayer was so simple. Jesus, please make Grandma better. As I watched this memory, Jesus showed me what was happening in the spiritual realm at that exact moment. I saw my simple, childish prayer rise up like a beautiful golden arrow. I saw it strike a dark, shadowy figure that was looming over my grandmother's hospital bed. The creature shrieked and recoiled, and a beam of pure light descended and surrounded my grandmother. The next day, she made a miraculous recovery. I had never known. I had just thought she got better. No prayer is too small, Jesus said, his voice ringing with power. No word spoken in faith is ever wasted. You have no idea of the battles you win when you get on your knees. The enemy wants you to believe your prayers are bouncing off the ceiling. I want you to know they're shaking the foundations of hell. Tears streamed down my face. The weight of it all, the beauty, the sorrow, the hope, it was too much to bear. All I wanted was to stay here with him, in this place of perfect love and perfect truth. The thought of going back to the world of noise and pain and floods was unbearable. Please, I begged him, the words catching in my spiritual throat. Please let me stay. I don't want to go back. It's too hard down there. I'm tired. All I could think about was the smell of my mom's Sunday pancakes, a memory of a simple, safe time. I just wanted to rest. He looked at me, and his eyes were filled with a tenderness that melted my resolve. He put a hand on my shoulder, and the feeling was like 1,000 warm blankets on a cold night. My sweet child, he said, his voice a gentle caress. Your love for your family is a beautiful thing. It is a reflection of my love for you. But they need you. Lily needs her mother. Brandon needs his wife. They cannot hear me right now, but they will be able to hear you. He paused. I am sending you back not to a life of ease, but to a life of purpose. You will be a light. You will tell them what you have seen. You will tell them that I love them, that I am not angry, and that I am coming. You must tell them to prepare their hearts, not with canned goods and bunkers, but with prayer, with forgiveness, with love for their neighbor. That is the only preparation that will matter. The pain of leaving him was the worst pain I have ever felt. It was a tearing, a separation from the source of all joy. I cried a deep, sorrowful sob. I don't know if I can do it. You will not be alone, he promised, his voice strong and sure. I will be with you every step, every word. Now go and do not be afraid. He touched my forehead and I gasped. The first thing I felt was fire, a brutal, searing fire in my chest. Then cold, a deep, bone-chilling cold. My body was racked with a violent cough, and a torrent of muddy, foul-tasting water erupted from my lungs. The world came rushing back in, a chaotic explosion of sound and light. I heard screaming. We've got a pulse. We've got a pulse. Clear. My eyes fluttered open. The ceiling was white. There were bright, blinding lights. Faces hovered over me, their mouths moving, but I couldn't understand the words. They were wearing masks and scrubs. A tube was being pulled out of my throat, and the feeling was raw and agonizing. Ma'am, can you hear me? Can you tell us your name? A voice said, loud and urgent. I tried to speak, but only a hoarse croak came out. Katie. I was in a makeshift emergency shelter set up in the high school gymnasium. I was on a cot, surrounded by chaos. People were crying, shivering under blankets. Medics were rushing back and forth. A doctor with tired eyes leaned over me. Katie, he said, his voice full of disbelief. You were found by a rescue team. You had no heartbeat, no breath. We were working on you for over 20 minutes. We were about to call it. You were clinically dead. He just shook his head slowly. I've been a doctor for 30 years. I've never seen anything like this. It's a miracle. I started to weep, not from pain, but from loss. I had just left the arms of Jesus, and now I was back in this broken, hurting world. The contrast was so stark, so cruel. I had just left heaven, and my chest ached with the memory of it. They found Brandon and Lily a few hours later. They had been rescued and taken to a different shelter. The moment Brandon saw me, he collapsed. He just fell to his knees by my cot and sobbed, holding my hand like he would never let go. Lily climbed onto the cot with me, her small arms wrapped around my neck, and she just whispered, "I thought you were gone, Mommy. I thought you were gone." And I held her, and I held my husband, and I knew why I had to come back. So this is the message he gave me for you. For anyone who is listening, he sees you in your quiet moments, in your struggles, in your worries about the future. He is not a distant, angry God. He is a loving Father trying to get our attention. The world's gonna get shaken. Things are gonna happen that will scare a lot of people. But please do not be afraid. It's not a punishment. It's a rescue. It's a wake-up call. He is stripping away the things that we've put our trust in so that we will finally put our trust in him. If you're wondering if your prayers matter, I saw it with my own eyes. They are weapons. They are powerful. So pray. Pray for your family, for your neighbors, for this country. Turn off the news, put down your phone, and just talk to him. You don't need fancy words. You just need a willing heart. He is waiting to listen. Heaven is real. Jesus is alive, and he is coming. Prepare your hearts. That is all that matters.